Welcome to the new now high-end highness wow factor evolution. I am Majesty-ALL-MIGHTY. Wow, thank you for joining me for this segment. So today I want to speak with you about being children of the lucrative light and richly redeeming the times for revenue. So this is really important. I try to share on topics in terms of what I know is most relevant, especially for these times, and being able to use the sound scripture in order to support these initiatives as people are leveling up in their new now high-end calling, which the basis for the new high-end calling is all about the evolution and expansion of Revelation 4:1, being able to come up higher, come up here, come up hither, as some translations say. And we always want to be coming up higher. That represents our evolution. So, as I mentioned, I want to talk about being children of the lucrative light. And we hear in scripture about being children of the light, and and how important it is in terms of how we lead our lives and leverage time currency to our highest advantage. So I'm going to be sharing from Ephesians chapter 5, verse 16 as the supporting scripture for today, as it talks about redeeming times. And so before I get into sharing that, I just want to talk a little bit about redeeming times, just, in a traditional context, so to speak. So, and even though this is a biblical context as well, it's about being able to vindicate. You think about the word redeem, okay? It means that you can vindicate or you can compensate for something, all right? Regaining something. And you want to be able to think in those times of not just areas you think you've lost ground in, so to speak, but you do want to redeem and have that mindset. Because even if you haven't really lost something, I think that everyone, to some extent, we are not always the best time stewards of time currency. But also, too, there are some things that have escaped us. But there's the opportunity to have the retroactive blessing experience to redeem that time back, There's, time we've wasted, and not maybe intentionally, just sometimes we just really didn't know. But it's all good because this is the time where we can redeem times. And I know that often is talked about how time is something that we just can't get back. And it's true, you can't get back the time that has already lapsed or is gone. But there is a way to be able to give the sense of redemption, that that time wasn't lost, almost like you made up for it. You can't necessarily get it back, but you can redeem it. And in this case, in the new now high-end expression, we want to be able to richly redeem the times, especially for the revenue factor, right? And revenue can be looked at in a holistic premise and not just revenue in terms of the financial currency aspect, right? We can richly redeem it all. But in order to richly redeem it all, you have to be a child of the lucrative light, right? So I'm going to share, as I mentioned, from Ephesians 5, 16, and I'm going to share from a couple of different translations. So the King James, New King James Version reads, redeeming the time because the days are evil. The Amplified Version is making the most of your time on earth, recognizing and taking advantage of each opportunity and using it with wisdom and diligence because the days are filled with evil. All right. So I want to talk about this in terms of being in the light. Being in the light is really being in awareness of truth and walking in that truth and embodying that truth. And in this case, we're talking about being children of the lucrative light, meaning how you are spending your time and the level of awareness that you are coming from is from this higher lucrative advantage. All right. So as you come up higher, you come up hither, you are supposed to be expanding in this higher awareness, right? So in this higher awareness, you're going to be making the most of your time. You're going to be actually looking and examining, kind of having a lucrative life review, if you will, in terms of, okay, that maybe was not the best use of my time at another point, but how I redeem that is moving forward. Here's how I'm going to spend my time. Here's how I'm going to maximize it. And maybe there is an opportunity for me to start anew or have a redo in a sense of something and actually make it better than it was before. So you lucratively learn from your situations or from others that you've examined too. And even if you've allowed other people to waste your time, so to speak, again, it's learning, but you can lucratize that. For me, I always examine where I have, if I want to say, been off, or where I've given my time away, and it was not to the highest advantage, or where I just was not the best steward of my time. I review that and I look at ways to basically lucratize that. What did I lucratively learn from that? And how can I now apply this to my highest advantage, but at the same time, help other people, right? To be able to pass that wisdom along to others. And so, as I'm passing that wisdom along to others, yes, there are some free levels that I give it out, but then there's the paid levels, lucratizing my lessons and learning and earning, so to speak. So there's ways to do it, all right? But you have to be in that mindset, in that higher embodiment in terms of how you're doing what you're doing, right? And leveraging it for the lucrative advantage and richly redeeming the times for revenue. So let's talk about the financial revenue factor as it relates to currency and the redemption power within that. All right. So if you've had losses, or let's say that you've invested time that just hasn't paid off yet. And so for you, you feel like that's time gone. I can't get that time back. And I have no fruit to show for that. All right. But you can be present with what is the evolution of the lesson here? What is the evolution of this situation? And then how do I actually make this into something lucrative? How do I richly redeem for revenue? See, we have to be able to ask these types of questions. Instead of complaining and wishing that something was different, all you have is the power of now, the power of now. And if you maximize the power of now and really be present with the potential, all the richness and fullness is right there. It's right here. It's all here right now. It's not suspended somewhere else. It's not in the past. The power, the profitable power for the potential and the possibilities, it is right now, here in this moment, here in this moment. And this moment is all you have. So why not be present and ask the right questions? As Tony Robbins has a quote, I'm paraphrasing in terms of that, the quality of a man's life will be based on the quality of questions that he asks himself, right? So what questions are you asking yourself? How can I be a better time currency stewardship? All right. Or time currency steward, or how can I practice better time currency stewardship, right? How can I richly redeem the times? How can I level up as a lucrative child of the light so that I'm in this higher awareness, that my understanding is illuminated so that I know how to accurately prepare and position myself for profits at the right time, and leverage all of life to the highest lucrative advantage. We have to be able to ask ourselves these questions. So we come through this era of enlightenment, and you see a whole lot about that online in different things. Enlightenment. So what does enlightenment mean to you? Because it's something different for everyone, even though, of course, there's a general premise for sure in terms of the fundamentals to that. But sometimes what's being projected, that's not really true enlightenment. And then if it is just around a certain context, but you can't necessarily leverage that in all cases. So you have to ask, what is enlightenment for this particular area? Or what is the evolution of the enlightenment that I should be aware of? You always have to look for the evolution, because most of the time people are so behind in the evolution that even what's coming up to them in thoughts, or even what's coming up to them by divine guidance, is typically behind in evolution. So this is important. So let me go back to the scripture where I like how the Amplified puts it: making the most of your time on earth, recognizing and taking advantage of each opportunity and using it with wisdom and diligence, because the days are filled with evil. So what does the days filled with evil really mean? Meaning there's so many misaligned opportunities. There's a lot of misalignment going on. And if you don't sync up with the higher advantage in what's aligned for you, you are going to find yourself looping in a lot of misalignments. And so, meaning there's a lot of activity that's going on in the world that is not serving. And anything that's not serving to your highest and best good, you can count that as kind of poison to your experience, and term it as evil if you want to, so to speak. But the thing about it is that you have an opportunity to make the most of your time. So when you're making the most of the time currency, you're not falling into the traps of distraction and deflection and delays. All right. Now, divine delays come up for sure, but they're part of the divine plan for a reason. All right. Divine detours can happen, but I'm talking about those things that are not within the divine will, so to speak. Yes, can God work them out for your good? Absolutely. Scripture talks about that. But when you just have this default that is being defaulted into the distractions, that's you not being mindful of this time currency that you have, right? They say time is money and money is time. It's currency. Time is currency. And so if we're going to redeem the currency, we're going to redeem the times. Again, you have to be intentional. You have to lucratively be enlightened, so to speak, and richly redeem the times. Now, how the Bible talks about the violent take it by force, where in this case, it's not necessarily in aggression, but it is in intention. Being intentional and acting in inspired, divine inspired ways upon that intention, so that you can implement effectively and be able to execute effectively, so that when it's harvest time, oh, you can pull it in. You can pull it in, and you'll be enlightened enough that you will not be asleep during harvest time and not recall what you've already sown and planted, and then neglecting the harvest that you've planted, not the harvest, excuse me, but the what you've planted and you're watering. But yeah, so I can go on and on about this. But yeah, so richly redeeming the time. So we want to be wise in what we're doing and be careful, how you walk. Pay attention, use wisdom. Do not be in unwise counsel. Don't participate in unwise activity. Okay. So you need to be mindful. So don't be foolish. Understand what the Lord's will is during this time. All right. The lucrative Lord of hosts, what that divine will is at this time. And so that's how you're going to be redeeming the times, is you're going to ask the right questions and get present to profit and leverage the power of now, so that you can be accurately prepared and positioned for prosperity and to be able to have that new now high-end harvest that is ripe and ready for you, and also to be creating the momentum for time currency that's going to continue to serve you and serve you and serve you to your highest high-end advantage. Okay, so I believe I'm going to bring it to a close now. Thank you for being here with me for this particular segment, and just know that it's your time. And I know that can sound pretty cliche-ish, but it actually is accurate. But it's only your time when you make it your time to redeem, richly redeem the times and for your highest revenue advantage. Okay, so I send you away with many blessings, and I look forward to being back with you soon.